business. Mental health was in the first word. A suicidal man. Why would you come out guns drawn if I'm telling you I have all this arsenal? Like, I'm crying. That's a cry for help. I'm telling you I have all these weapons. I'm telling you I'm suicidal. And I have everything here that I need to take my own life. I don't need you, baby. I don't need you. But while you're here, can you help? Apparently, they said, sorry, not sorry. According to reports, police confronted Rothstein, who said he was going to start shooting if he didn't get what he wanted by 3:39 a.m. What he needed was some sleep. At that designated time, Rothstein pointed what turned out to be a BB gun at two officers, both of them whom fired. This was in a 2007 shooting that was determined to be justified after the investigation and reviews. Gaines was killed August 1st after she reportedly pointed a shotgun at officers attempting to serve an arrest warrant at her apartment for, you know what the arrest warrant was for, right? Traffic court. Traffic court. We'll leave that there. After Labor Day weekend, Chicago reaches 500 murders for 2016. If you think Boston is bad, I promise you our numbers are nowhere close. We don't even have, you want to talk about a third world country? We don't have to leave the United States of America. Just go to Chicago. I seen some pictures of some of the houses that are for sale in Chicago. Because you know, TaylaAndre, the real estate agent, is nosy. I want to look at all the properties. So the properties in Chicago are dumb cheap. $10,000 for like a Victorian style mansion with acres of land. Like, it is so sick. It's so ridiculous. I seen some properties in Ohio. Multi-million-dollar estates, $250,000, because of the crime, because of the violence. Go on and let them kill each other. We're going to go ahead and make the property's going to be dirt cheap. We don't think about this. Dirt cheap properties. And then the whole boom comes, just like Roxbury's boom, dirt cheap properties. All of a sudden, a lot is now $750,000 and there's no house on it. Oh, you don't believe me? Go search Zillow real quick. Properties in your neighborhood are now 8.5 or 850, 850,000, 1.2, 1,200,000 for lots, no house. Over the Labor Day weekend, 13 out of 65 people who were shot in Chicago were killed. 13 out of 65 people in one weekend. Out of the 3-day holiday this summer, Labor Day weekend was one of the deadliest. During Memorial Day weekend, 6 out of 69 shootings were shot fatalities. And over the 4th of July weekend, 5 out of 66 shootings were fatal. According to reports, homicides in Chicago have risen to levels that haven't been seen since the 1990s. In August, 90 homicides were recorded, tying for the most the city has seen in the last single month since 1996. Although Chicago is the third largest city in the country, the homicide and shooting continues to outpace New York, Los Angeles, which are both bigger cities. New York and LA have a combined of 409 homicides for 2016, and Chicago is already at 500. And truthfully, it's 512 for the year. A total of 2,930 people have been shot. Ridiculous. A Ferguson activist was found dead in a burning car. According to reports, an activist who rose to the prominence in Ferguson, Missouri after the 2014 police killing of Michael Brown was found dead in a burning car Tuesday rising. Do you think the people in his neighborhood did it? Do you think he set himself on fire? Police discovered the body of Darren Seals, 29 years old, at 1:50 a.m. According to a statement to reports, crews have been called out to the burning vehicle in the city of Riverview, about 10 miles from downtown St. Louis, and found Seals' body when the flames were exhausted. Police provided Seals' first name as Darren, but on social media and past news report, it was spelled Darren, but with a double R. after Seals, who on Twitter went by the handle at Kings D. Seals, was nearby when Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson killed Michael Brown in August 9th of 2014. The Nation reported that Seals arrived on the scene in time to see Brown's body lying in the street, and he went on to comment repeatedly about the shooting and unrest that followed. He was also an active participant in ensuing protests in St. Louis. Post dispatched the report. According to reports, Seals was an assembly line worker and a hip-hop musician in 2014, when he spent time urging community members to vote against local Democrats. In recent days, Seals tweeted praise for the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, who refused to stand for the national anthem, and criticized Black Lives Matter's movement. As of Tuesday afternoon, police have not identified any suspects in Seals' killing. The investigation is ongoing. They probably will not find who murdered that baby because he was murdered. That boy was not in a car, did not set himself on fire. That was not what he wanted for his life or what anybody else wanted for his life that supported his movement. And if he was on the scene, he was there. He was one of the ones that saw Mike Brown's body in 2014. You don't think 5 seconds? Let us not go back to New York. Eric Gardner, the young man that recorded Eric Gardner, is still in jail to this day, fighting to be free. And they went ahead and tried to poison the baby with rat poisoning. Remember the report that I read? And over 18 incarcerated persons, they're not inmates, over 18 incarcerated persons got sick over the food. And he was one of the ones that got sick. Y'all remember that? Okay. Go back. Go back and read. Go back and find out. Go back and remember the things that we discussed in previous shows. Support for Black Lives Matter growing amongst young white adults, and an increasing number of white youth are expressing support for the Black Lives Matter movement, according to recent reports. Approximately 51% of young white adults between the ages of 18 and 30 say they strongly or somewhat support the movement, and a 10-point increase since June, according to Gen Forward polls. Some 42% say they do not support the movement. Really quickly, I want to make sure that I get this correct. The name of the play that I was at yesterday, because you guys know I'll butcher everything real quick. But the name of the play that I was at yesterday was In the Field. Oh Lord, somebody don't beat me. Okay, so it's In the Field, and it's about yeah, I killed it. Anna DeVere's, huge deal. Note from the Field. I had to find it. I had to. So Notes from the Field was an excellent doing time and education. It was a one-woman play where Anna played out scenes from Lewis, my girl from Black Lives Matter. She played out all of these scenes. She played out the scene of Kaya, the young lady who was in the room when the young girl was dragged out of her chair, and the officer, he was acquitted, as a matter of fact. And she just played out all of these scenes of how education, that prison to pipeline, that school to prison pipeline, and how it plays out in society today. And you know how talking about the school to prison pipeline and third grade, if you can't read by third grade, that's how they dictate whether or not you're going to jail. It's different than just seeing the statistics when you see the stories in front of you and you hear the stories in front of you. Anna did an amazing job. Shout out to Marcus Shelby. Notes from the Field, doing time in education. From what I understand, the play is going on for the next 2 weeks, but they have sold out. And the reason why I bring it back up is because of the Black Lives Matter movement, growing on young white adults. But let me tell you that there was only about 10% of Black people in that play yesterday. When I tell you a good 80 to 85% were 65 and older white men and women, it made me think, like, were these the elders that walked and protested with Martin Luther King Jr.? Were these the elders that saw, you know, for face value what equality really looked like, what it truly looked like? Because there weren't that many young white educators there, or, you know, what looked like educators, or what looked like, you know, there was a couple students from some of our charter schools there, but it blew my mind, the demographics that attended Notes from the Field doing time in education. Look it up. You'll love it. You'll Google it. Hopefully somebody has an extra ticket so you can go ahead and attend and cry just as bad as I did. The ex-South Carolina cop who hurled the black student over a desk will not face any criminal charges. Any criminal charges. The South Carolina police officer who was fired for violently dragging a young black girl across a classroom over the use of a cell phone will not face criminal charges. And this is the problem that we have in the United States of America, because let that have been me. Let me have been an educator. Let her not have put her phone away, and let me do to her what the police officer did to her. And I promise you, A, I wouldn't have a job. B, I wouldn't be able to teach ever again in life. And C, I'd be facing criminal charges because that baby's mama will come, or a grandmother or a foster parent or whoever was in her, you know, a parental guardian would have came after me. Legally. There would have been something, I would have been prosecuted, period. And I believe that's how we need to start treating these officers, especially if you were involved in another shooting, or people complain about you all the time. Well, Taylor, people complain about you all the time. What that mean? It means that you need to ask me questions just like we ask these officers questions. Hold people accountable. Accountability. Accountability. What accountability does this officer face? What accountability does he face after being fired when we know damn well that he can be rehired? What accountability do we have? We have a caller on the line, 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller, you're live.
Good rising, Joe.
Good rising, Talkwa. How you doing? Shout out to the nation.
Blessed and happy Taylor. Well, you know, there is recourse. Even though there will be no criminal charges filed, there is still the civil process where you can shake him down for every penny he ever thought of, tie him up in so much litigation that you own his grandchildren. There will no day treatment.
Okay. I'm with you on that one. But what legal recourse is there, if any? And Talkwa, if you could you please, you guys have a huge event going on this weekend. Could you please mention that quickly?
Okay, but real quick, civil suit is the only recourse to step. Shake him down for every penny you'll ever touch, present, past, and future. Regarding the event, Minister Don Muhammad, a man of whom Minister Farrakhan says he has no peer in the Nation of Islam. This man has been serving since 1958, the year I was born. That's a long time. 58 years in the Nation of Islam. And he was not just a minister over the mosque, but he was an advisor to the city. You know, so many elected officials and political leaders came to this man for counsel. You know, he is a historic figure in the Nation of Islam. He served under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was directly taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is really the father of Black consciousness. You know, before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad rose up and started teaching Malcolm, teaching Muhammad Ali, we didn't want to be called Black. Being called Black, he would take it like a slur, like if you said the F word to a gay person, that was fighting words. But
I was like, what? I get it.
This man served under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister Don has a great legacy in the city of Boston, which we will be celebrating on Saturday. Saturday, this Saturday, September 10th, at Lantana's in Randolph.
So for the really quickly, Taco, I don't mean to cut you off, but we are pressed for time. I do want to quickly inform the listeners that we do have a lot of people coming out for this event because Minister Don is very revered by all. And who is one of the guests that is going to be showing up this weekend?
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be the keynote speaker at this event. We were going to just do a tribute to Minister Don locally. Minister Farrakhan said, no, y'all can't be selfish and keep him all to yourself. He's a national icon. And I will come back when he was here in June. He said, I will come back in September. I'll be the keynote speaker, and we'll do this big. We'll give it, the magnitude that it deserves.
And I'll go ahead and post the link so people can go ahead and purchase tickets, because you can purchase tickets, be in the building, and feel the energy of Minister Louis Farrakhan right here in Boston. If that's something you're interested in, you already know how I feel about the minister. So, hallelujah.
The tickets are available online at FarrakhanSpeaks.com. FarrakhanSpeaks.com.
Thank you so much, Taco. We love and appreciate you. Hope you have an amazing day today.
Love you more. You too, Taylor. And keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's gold for what you do.
Do you know how much I weigh, Taco? That's a whole lot of gold. He said, I ain't gonna touch that. Don't talk about the ladies' weight. Ain't gonna touch that. The back-end pipeline construction temporarily is halted as protests rage. The emergency court hearing followed a weekend of protests that turned violent in North Dakota. I don't know if you noticed, but I have not seen reports about what's going on as far as the Standing Rocks, I butcher names, Sioux tribe. These are the Dakota Access Pipeline, Bacon Pipeline. They're not protesters. Like, this is my land, son. Like, this is my land. You done took over the whole United States of America. You gave me this little piece of nappiness, and you want me to do what with it? Hold on, pause. I live on this concentration camp. This is mine. You can't take it from me. It's federally protected. Federally, not by the state, not by myself, but federal protection over peace treaties and laws before you were born. And you think for 5 seconds that you and your corporation, your organization, can just throw a pipeline in between my land? This land is your land. This land is my land. From Minnesota. I don't even know the words. I don't care. What I do care about is the fact that this is sacred land, that we think we can do whatever we want to do with it. 1,172-mile pipeline that would pump oil from the fracked shale deposits in North Dakota to an oil hub in Illinois. No thank you, no ma'am, no sir. This is my land. I will fight for it. I will continue to fight for it. You know they over there spray, spray painting. What's that little pepper spray? They're pepper spraying the protesters like that. How do you get to be aggressive towards me on my land? This is sovereignty. This is sovereign land. This is sacred land. You just can't walk in here and impose your will upon us. But that's what's going on right now. A U.S. District Judge James Boasberg partially halted the construction until he reached more complete decision. What decision do you need when this is sacred land? When this is sovereign land? We can't go over to a country and listen, the sovereign land means it's not ours. It means it's theirs. That's why they can throw a casino on it if they want to. They can have orgies on it if they want to. They can do what they want. And you want to be truthful and honest about it. They don't even have to come into your court. Why? Because they have their own police department. They have their own court system. They hold themselves accountable because they are sovereign. That means something. So I don't understand why Judge James Boasberg partially halted the construction until he reached a more complete decision, because there's nothing for you to decide on. And it goes back, I want to take it back to the fact that there is a constitution that says you have the right to bear arms. Then why are you over here trying to dictate and determine and make laws about what the Constitution says? Because I think somewhere in the Constitution it says that my land is my land. You cannot build it. I really wish we had some type of respect. What makes me more upset is if you went to the TaylaAndre page, TaylaAndre on Facebook, there is a video of those protesters. And if you watch how they've been treated the worst. More than anybody else. I know black people like, they ain't been treated worse than us. Yeah, they have, because we are them. They are us. You didn't know that? I'm sorry. You didn't know your history. My bad. You should go back and read. It's not illegal anymore. But my heart bleeds for them. Please be mindful. Please pay attention. Please look at international news, because this mainstream media is not going to tell you the truth. Just like they're not going to tell you that there's over 30 candidates running independently. Did you know that? 30 candidates running independently. Because last time we checked, there was only 2 candidates, right? Hillary and Trump. Trump, and Hillary. There's 30 candidates that are running independently. We have one of those candidates currently in the building. Really quickly, today is the day in which we vote. Here in Massachusetts, we are voting, and I want to, Boston primary voting, I want you to be mindful. If you are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, I have a link that will tell you where you should vote, where you can vote. So the polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. You have the legal right to tell your boss deuces for up to 2 hours and go vote. So I don't care if you leave at 12 o'clock and come back at 2. As long as you tell your boss, I'm going to vote for those 2 hours. From what I understand, you're still supposed to be paid for it. I will do my research, due diligence, get back to you on that. But from what I understand, you're still supposed to be paid for it, unless it's like your little 13 or 15-minute break is a part of that, which they can legally add to it, because it's the United States of America and they do what they want. But other than that, you have 2 hours. 2 hours to go back to where you live, to go vote, and, you know, pick up some lunch at Zaz, because that basil rice is amazing, and then head back to work. I went ahead and I posted the link for you to find out where do you vote and how do you vote, and once you put all of your information in, and it's not really any real life information, your first name, your last name, your birthday, and your zip code. And from there, it'll tell you everybody. It'll tell you who your governor is if you don't know. It'll tell you who your city councilor is. It'll tell you, it even breaks down. You guys remember the governor's council? It tells you in what, in your district, who your governor's council representative is. And if you forgot, your governor's council elects every single last one of these judges. So your judges for your speeding tickets, your judges for your child support, your judges for your murder case, all of those judges are appointed by a person. And currently, right now, they have nothing but white men sitting in those seats, dictating who the other white men are going to be sitting in those seats judging you. So I just want you to be mindful. Pay attention. Pay attention. If you don't like Hillary, you don't like Trump, guess what? We have a third option in the building. But as far as our local politics are concerned, there is no reason why you should ever open your mouth about a complaint about anything as far as Boston is concerned, and your ass ain't at a poll today. Ashay? In closing. All right, so I want you to be mindful. Suffolk County Sheriff, you have 2 options. You already know who I endorse. So we have Alexander Ramelli, or Ralimi, and we have Sheriff Steve Tompkins, who is running for re-nomination. That is currently his seat, so he's the incumbent. We also have, do not forget, we have Sonia Chang Diaz, 2nd Suffolk District Senate. Sonia Chang Diaz, who is currently the incumbent, and Roy Owens is running against her. We have 5th Suffolk District House of Representatives. Evandro is running. He's currently the incumbent. And Melinda Stewart is running against him. And you already know the CVs in the building got that on lock. As far as Suffolk District House of Representatives, I want to wish these ladies the best of luck. It's so difficult for me to choose one because I think all three of them are equally aggressive. All three of them equally can handle the task. This is Gloria Fox's former seat, Monica Cannon, Meredith Tuith, and China Tyler. I want to give all three of them my love and support. Shout out, because all of them are chicas and all of them are making that black girl magic. So, you know, I really don't have a dog in that fight because I love all three of them. And I wish them all three the best. And whoever wins is the winner. But I love you all. And I do your due diligence on who you're going to choose. Because I still don't know who I'm going to vote for after we get behind that curtain. 11th Suffolk District. Listen, I need you to pay attention, okay? You may not, I'm going to be honest. Somebody's feelings might be hurt. You may not like Charles Clemens Jr. You may think he's a babbling, rambling. Trust me, I've heard it all. Tayla, how can you? I trust Charles because I believe Charles has our best interest at heart. Do you know Elizabeth Malaya? She is currently the incumbent. She's held that seat for how long? Roxbury is part of that seat, and she has done nothing with it all the years that she's had Roxbury in her hand. If you want to see change, go ahead and put your vote in for Charles Clemens. You don't have to like him as a person, but listen to the things he has to say because he does have your best interest at heart. And for 11th Suffolk to be ran by Elizabeth all these years and for us to see no changes, I personally say I trust in Charles before I want Elizabeth to have another year or another term. 12th Suffolk District, Jovan Lissette, ICN, he's Haitian, and we have Carletta Williams. Carletta has been on air with us. You already know she's from the South. She don't play no games. What she say? Her daddy, what's her daddy name? Her daddy raised her right, and she wants to do right by the people. I'm throwing my hat in for Carletta. Shout out to Jovan. Best of luck. But my personal, I could talk about my personal, right? Because that's my personal. As far as the Suffolk County Register of Deeds, shout out to all the candidates. Douglas Bennett, even though he didn't want to show up to Roxbury votes. Stephanie Everett, Catherine Ford, Michael Mackin. Put your vote in for Mackin. Stephen Murphy, who didn't want to show up for Roxbury votes. Paul Nutting Jr., Jeffrey Michael Ross. Whoever you want to go ahead and put your vote in, put your vote in. But I personally would love to see Stephanie Everett, who is also an attorney, who also knows Register of Deeds in and out. Newspapers went ahead and endorsed somebody that has absolutely no legalese expertise. So I don't, in your Register of Deeds has all to do with legal matters. Like, it's legal matters, for crying out loud. With that being said, I'm putting my hat in for Stephanie Everett. I messed it up. I ruined it. I was trying to do the, to whoever victors run the spoils. I don't know. I ruined it. Oh, well. Question 1 will allow the Gaming Commission to issue an additional slots and licenses. That's as far as casinos are concerned. Question 2 will authorize the approval of up to 12 new charter schools for enrollment expansions in existing charter schools by the State Board Elementary. Listen, my kids are in charter, and I'm still voting no. I'm still voting no. You want to know why? Because I don't think we need private education. 12 new charter schools every year for the entire state. Nah, I'm good. I'm voting no on question 2. I think it's, do we need more seats? We do. But this right here, y'all need to take this back to the House and Senate and figure it out, because this isn't working. 12 new charter schools a year for the whole, nah, no. Question 3 will prohibit certain methods of farm animal containment. That need to be on a federal. That needs to be on November's election. We need to start voting on how because you are what you eat. And if the animals have diseases and nastiness and everything else running in them, what do you think's running in you? You are what you eat. Just think about it. And question 4 will legalize it. And if you don't want to legalize it, let me go ahead and tell you to just go get your medical marijuana card. $25 off. Let them know that TaylaAndre sent you. Medwell Health, 820 Pearl Street, Brockton, Massachusetts, 774-517-5195. Let John know that Tayla sent you. That's the owner of Medwell. $25 off your medical marijuana card. Make sure you say my name so you can get that $25 off. If they don't legalize it with question 4, if they don't say yes to question 4, just get your card. All right. I want to give a huge shout out to Faith's Natural. Yesterday we were looking for her brick and mortar because you know TaylaAndre, the real estate agent now. So we did go to a few locations and we are trying to find a home for the Pum Pum Wash. So if you know somebody who has a building that we can use for retail space, call me, please. Call me now because Faith needs a brick and mortar. She needs a storefront because she is selling out. Every time she stock up products are gone the next day. She just stocked up on Sunday in I always want to say Brockton, but she's in Randolph on Main Street at Top Notch. She just stocked on Sunday. She has to restock today. So y'all doing y'all thing. Thank you so much for supporting her. And I would like to say publicly that Faith has given her 2 weeks notice to her employer so she could work for herself and make Pum Pum Wash for all of us. I know, I just like saying Pum Pum Wash. Leave me alone. With that being said, with no further ado, because I have been running and rambling this mouthpiece, and I want our guest to start running and rambling his mouth because I love everything that comes out this man's mouth. His name is John Fitzgerald Johnson. He is the product of this great United States. As a veteran, he has defended this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. As an activist, he has been one of the loudest voices for unity and change in addressing the stormy season of racial inequality that has griped the nation. He is particularly focused on the issues of police brutality. He is a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. Beyond civil rights, Johnson has permissive views on immigration, and as an advocate of guest workers' rights, women equality rights, student loan reform. Oh, Lord have mercy. I should have worn my t-shirt. Can you pay my student loan? And gun control. Remember, we had a conversation about guns yesterday, so we'll go ahead and see how he feels, because you know our politicians trying to take our rights away. Laura Healy. Make sure you do not vote for Maura Healey. This ain't voting season for her right now, but the next election, she's trying to take your gun rights away, so we need to go ahead and vote her out. John Fitzgerald comes with the people and not from, I think I read that wrong. John Fitzgerald comes from the people and not from the political machine that America has grown tired of. He knows that we are one nation and only we can fix us. Please put your hands together for John Fitzgerald Johnson. I'm going to go on and give you the number now. 617-282-0062. Again, 617-282-0062. Good rising, my love. How are you?
I am just blessed to be in your presence. You know, I got to say this before we even get started. First of all, on behalf of your entire organization for reaching out to us, 101.3 FM, Big City.
Big City.
Listen. I couldn't understand why some people had a problem with listening to you. And now that I've been standing here going on a roller coaster ride, because you give it to them straight with no chaser. There's no chaser in the house. We didn't even buy none. This right here is for grown folks. This is not milk and cereal. This is steak and eggs. That's what we got going right here. So before I begin, let me say that it is truly a pleasure to know that there are still places in the United States where freedom of speech has grown legs and is running the race. I travel all over the country, and there are places where people still tend to be constrained by the master's chains, so to speak. And I know there are folks already saying, wait a minute, hold on a second. How can he be a candidate for the presidency of the United States talking like that? Then I will dovetail into it this way. There's nothing wrong, and I'm speaking to all 47 million of us, the entire rainbow, and you know who I'm talking to. There's nothing wrong for the swell of pride that we felt when Barack Obama ascended to the White House. We should have. We felt we deserved it. We even deluded ourselves into thinking this was a turning point. But in the 8 years under the Obama administration, racial relations have deteriorated to the worst they've been in over 20 years. And we're starting to see the resurgence of some attitudes and some practices that we thought we had deluded ourselves into believing were behind us. And even though Mr. Obama has done many things for many people, the one thing that I can honestly say to Mr. Obama is that you have made us wonder if you are in fact proud of us when it matters. So therefore, I am not afraid to say that even though I would be the president of all Americans, no matter which side of the fence you choose to sit on or how you got here, whether you came here willingly or you are a descendant of the unwilling, and that is another conversation, that I will not under any circumstances compromise nor deny the heritage, the history, and the due justice of an entire race of people that form a nation within the nation. And that being said, I wanted to get that off of my political chest first. I want to say this also. I'm getting a lot of people nowadays who are saying, well, I've never heard of you. Where did you come from? Why haven't I heard of you? Then I want you to stand up and I want you to clap your hands and give a standing ovation to the corporate-owned mass mainstream media. They have done a great job at denying the American people knowledge about other folks who have availed themselves to the process as laid out in this so-called Constitution of the United States to seek the office of the presidency. I heard Tayla say early when I got here that there were 30. No, let me correct her, my sister. There are over 4,000 of us. If you go to the Federal Election Commission website, you will find out that a lot of people start the race. But just like I've learned, this is not so much a race as a participation in a process that they have had over 200 years to refine. It is an uphill battle that has been tied to money. And if you don't have the money, no matter how noble your goals are, no matter how noble your intentions, no matter what your motivation, what sense of righteousness, or what wrong you want to correct, you got to pay your way to stay in this game. I have been running for the presidency for over a year. I have been on all of the major Black urban radio networks. I started off just like everyone else. The interesting thing was, and people are wondering why we're all coming back, is because none of us thought for 2 seconds that Donald Trump would stand a chance past the primaries. So a lot of us just kind of fell back. And then the true picture came into focus. And I'm going to back up for a second because I heard my sister talk about Marilyn Mosby. I stood on the steps with Marilyn Mosby when she read those charges. I was in Charleston, South Carolina with the Scott family. I was in Charleston, South Carolina for the Mother 9 Emanuel. I was in Cincinnati for Sam Dubose. I've been on the front lines. And what amazed me, and the reason I began to seek the office of the presidency, was not for all the other multitude of things that are wrong with our community, was because I did not hear anyone speaking to the true pain of America. I did not see any politician that was putting themselves into a position to lead this country for the next 4 to 8 years. I've got to pause because it hurts. It hurts me because I didn't see anyone who cared, yet they wanted to be in power. They're going to ask for your vote right now. They're going to come visit you and they're going to eat your food and kiss your babies. They're going to tell you that we're going to seek justice. But you have to understand that the definition of justice for some folks is an injustice for others. You have to also understand that a system has been built and put into place, and I have learned in the last year just how deeply entrenched this system is. There are those of us, I myself originally declared as a Democrat because I figured that's how Mama voted, so I guess that's what I'll do too. Until they begin to tell me what to think, what to say and what not to say. Oh yes, I was introduced to all the right people. Do your research on me and you'll see pictures of me with everybody from the senators all the way up to the president. Groomed as the golden child. For those of you all wondering, I was born when John Kennedy was killed. That's how I earned my name. My mother was in labor, so as he left, I entered. Now here I am 50 some years later, and I am trying to pick up in the same capacity as the last person who bore this name. Maybe it's a coincidence or maybe it's fate. Either way, the footsteps of the righteous, I heard that written somewhere. Y'all stop me if you heard that before. That's from my Bible readers, my Quran readers, you know what I'm saying. But I'm here today because when we begin to see, not only is the system crooked, not only is it rigged, and I'm going to say this openly, it is so rigged that it is almost laughable. But there are other things at play other than the system being rigged itself. You see, he who controls the media controls the minds of the masses, and a misinformed people make misinformed decisions. Cable news, Trump, 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 as I've heard, Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. But we began to say, hey, something ain't right. So they threw in a couple. Now, Johnson is my last name, and I've been running for the last year, and I had generated quite some interest. I had generated a large base of support. And then lo and behold, one day, one of my friends, a big shout out to Larry from the Freedom Fighters out in St. Louis, called me. And he says, hey, man, I'm sitting here with Mike Brown Sr., and, you know, we got your back. But your first name ain't Gary. And I say, wait a minute. It's sure not. So I zoomed to the FEC site and I checked. And in January of this year, a Republican, and I don't believe that a tiger changes its stripes, adopted the title of an independent, Gary Johnson. And it's interesting how Mr. Johnson suddenly gets on the polls. It's suddenly amazing how Mr. Johnson has a town hall on Fox. It's amazing to me how Mr. Johnson is just easing on up. And he's jumping over all of the hurdles that they have put in place to stop the rest of us from even getting on the polls, to even stop us from getting equal airtime on the television networks. There have been 2 independent presidential debates. Look them up yourself. They're available on YouTube. And they had representatives from every independent political party in this country, including the Green Party, including the Libertarian Party, and a few other parties. Everyone said, and I'm just repeating what they said, this is not my words, that I won that hands down. That I was the most versed on not only the issues that they're talking about, but the issues that were relevant to the people. You see, we cannot continue to ignore racial inequality in this country. We cannot continue to have conversations as if our past didn't happen. You say you don't want to be held responsible for the things your ancestors did, yet you want to continue to enjoy the fruits of it and not share it with the rest. You know, it's funny that you talked about what's happening with the Native Americans out west. I'm very much aware of it because they reached out to me, because they don't feel they have anyone else to talk to. I'm very much aware of a lot of the situations because I have a hand on the pulse of the people. But I'm also aware of something else. If the people don't wake up and realize how much power they truly hold, you are in for the shock of your lives come November the 8th. Now, what they've done is they put us in a position where that if you're crazy enough, as they say, someone told me I was crazy, but I just think I'm courageous. I'm a go-getter. I'm the type of individual that when something happens, I don't say, hey, somebody do something, I do something. I've worn the uniform for this country. I've stood behind the pulpit in this country, and I've stood on the front lines, not as a spectator, not just raising awareness. I came for the action. And I think that's what we as a people have become comfortable doing. We raise awareness very well, but when it's time for the action, we're waiting for somebody else to do the work. So irregardless of the threats I've received, irregardless of the blackout of the media, irregardless of all of these rules that they put in place, and I'll give you an example, just to get on the ballot in some states, they've got crazy requirements. Big shout out to the state of Indiana and Illinois. They're telling me in order for you to get on the ballot, you have got to have a notarized letter sent to every county in the state. What? Along with signatures of every elector, 11 electors apiece that says they're going to support you before we will put you on the ballot, plus a $50 service charge for your trouble. That's 110 counties. Now, if I have automatic ballot access, I don't have that problem. Well, the Democrats and Republicans have that. they have automatic ballot access. While the rest of us, and I study the Constitution from back to front, looking for where is this in the Constitution? The requirements to become the President of the United States are very simple. You must attain a certain age, be born here a natural citizen, and have lived here. That's it. So if someone says you're not qualified, there's no such thing. This country wasn't created legally or illegally by any professional politicians. You're being held hostage by a group that is playing you from one side to the other. While you're red and blue, welcome to the Matrix.
Really quick question.
Sure.
For those that are just now tuning in, Waking Up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. We're currently in the building with independent presidential candidate John Fitzgerald Johnson. Where we have somebody on Facebook right now saying an independent is not getting on a ballot in all 50 states. You are currently on how many ballots in how many states?
That's a great question. I'm glad that they're asking that. In actuality, an independent cannot get on the ballot on all 50 states because of two reasons. One, they have a thing called the sore loser law. And what that means is, number one, you can't, because of the simple factor thinking that what happened is in order to get on the ballot in the normal process, you have to garner so many signatures, and every state has a different number. Some states have very low numbers, like get 1,000 signatures and you're on the ballot, but you also got to tell us who your vice president is, while the other parties make a big show out of making you speculate on who their vice president's going to be. It's a show. But we've got to come with the full truck. Hey, I'm running, this is my vice president, and I got as many signatures of folks in your state, name, date of birth, and so forth, to get on your ballot. But if you don't get all of those folks on the ballot, some folks will just come back and try to do a write-in campaign. Hey, you just go in and write my name down. So they came out, you're being a sore loser. You didn't get the ballots. So what they'll say is, well, guess what? Under the sore loser law, we just won't have any independents. And there are 7 states that have that in effect. But let me share this with you while we're educating folks this morning. If you take the number of electoral votes, which is another issue we'll talk about because I have a problem with that. If you take the number of electoral votes between those 7 states, it only equals 44 electoral votes. So that's why nobody really cares about them. Now, myself and my vice presidential candidate, Lloyd Kelso, is a family lawyer, 30 years from the state of North Carolina. While everyone else was running around saying no to Hillary and no to Trump, we were busy hitting the streets and collecting signatures to get on the ballots in those states that we could. 43 states. Whether you know us or not, when you walk into your booth or the computer that's being controlled by the Department of Homeland Security, I didn't mean to say that out loud, you will see our name on there, and you'll probably say, Johnson? Oh, yeah, it's Gary Johnson. Yeah. No. Again, distractions on top of distractions on top of distractions. Some states have had incredibly high numbers. The state of California wanted 115,000 signatures. We got 125, and they still wanted to review them, and they wanted to dispute them. Please understand, no one's sitting around waiting for us to do these things. No one is sitting around saying, oh, yeah, you got the ballots. Come on in. Get on the ballot. It's all good. No. Money and power will make people do just about anything, and they will not give up that position easily. The Republicans and the Democrats created an organization that many of you are not familiar with, but you probably heard a little bit about, called the Commission on Presidential Debates. This commission is supposed to decide who gets in front of you on the national stage. Well, it was under the control of the League of Women Voters, but they figured it was too much to hassle, so they wanted someone else to take it over, so it was taken over by the Democrats and the Republicans. So do you honestly believe that they're going to set rules in place? They're going to allow someone like myself, or in this particular case, I could run down some names, other folks to get on the stage so you can actually go into the booth and know that we're now on the ballot. But we are on 43 right now, and just to show you how they don't stop, they're now reviewing and contesting 16 of those states already, which means they just got to go back and count the signatures again. They just got to go back and re-verify the date of birth. They're not going to change.
They didn't want to recount back in Florida when Bush was running, though.
Exactly. Recount. We're going to. In other words, we can't believe what we're seeing. How did you do this?
Are you on Massachusetts ballot?
No, we're not.
How do we get you on our ballot?
Oh, we've got a sneak attack. I don't want to reveal our strategy. But we read the law. We're deep in the law here. Now, Massachusetts has a loophole that they're not aware of, and I'm not going to talk about it here on your program because they'll go and close it.
You just snitched right now. They're going to go find it now.
This loophole is not that big. Okay, here's another key. So you have to understand election law also. Even if we didn't have any ballot signatures, even if that's not the case, October 28th is actually the deadline for you to send a letter to the secretary of your particular state simply saying, I'm going to be a writing candidate. People are going to come in and write me in. And if you raise enough awareness, you can actually change the course of an election. Here's the question. If a candidate does win the election, the general election, by write-in, then what happens? Well, some folks say, well, he'll be a lame duck president because they won't support him. The Democrats and the Republicans won't support him. Well, I heard when I first walked into the studio that there's another battle going on that you really should be aware of at the congressional level. You want to really break the gridlock in Washington? You don't have to wait for someone like me to get into the executive office and start using my executive authority, just like Bush did, and start throwing laws all over the place without consulting with Congress or the people. You can just change the demographics yourself and vote certain people out of Congress that have been sitting there all their life. And let me talk about that for a second. There's an old saying that you are who you were when. What that means is wherever you grew up, whatever time period you came into your consciousness, you spend the rest of your life trying to adapt to an ever-changing world. I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s. So I'm still somewhere between Good Times and Norman Lear and Lost in Space and Star Trek and Marvin Gaye. That's who I am. But I've had to live through the crack era that they act like didn't happen. I've had to live through 2 or 3 major wars that I've been a part of. I've had to live through the rise of technology that didn't exist. I've had to live through folks who can't go to the University of Google and get stuff instantly and seem smart. I can only remember that we pass things down by word of mouth. Or show me a video of slavery. Can someone please just pull up a Instagram of, matter of fact, I'm in Boston, and I understand this is the first port that they brought us in on. Can someone please bring me a video? Well, then how do I know what happened? See, this is the era that I've had to adapt to. Instant information, instant connection. There are people right now listening to my voice far and wide beyond the confines of this city. There are people listening to this around the world. And this is the society that we live in now. There are people today that are in power who are still mentally in the 50s, mentally in the 60s, mentally in the 70s. Sounds scary, doesn't it? You have the power to change it, but you have to exercise that power. The only wasted vote is a vote not cast. My name is John Fitzgerald Johnson, and I am an independent candidate for the presidency of the United States, not because I want to be in charge, not because I want to say, hey, I did it. I've already done that. I can look at my grandchildren and say, hey, I ran for president. Say I did something. Hope I'm an inspiration to you. No, it's because I'm tired of watching a group of people that were put in place to take care of us, reversing the roles. They just want us to take care of them. A people should not fear their government. The government should fear the people. So therefore, when I look at the issues, and I'm going to give you some time here to ask your questions, Tayla. When I look at the issues that are confronting Americans, and I actually was shocked. Here's what got me, and I'm going to actually go verbatim, word for word. And this is the order of their importance, folks. The economy, terrorism, foreign policy, healthcare, gun policy, immigration, social security, education, Supreme Court appointments, treatment of racial, ethnic minorities, trade policy, environment, abortion, and then treatment of gay, lesbian, and transgender people. In that order. That is what the Pew Research Center says are the important issues to America. That's interesting. 500 people have died in Chicago. The police officers are killing the very people that they are sworn to protect. So now I must now go back and question, Where's police reform on this list? I don't see that over here. I see gun policy. Let me share this with those folks who are probably saying, well, I don't agree with anything he's saying. Before you can destroy a people, you have to disarm them first. Do your research on history. Not only that, the Constitution was written in a very unique way. Whether it applied to us as 3/5 of a person or not, they did think of one thing that was correct. That should the government get out of control and start to act like you belong to it and not that it belongs to you, you have the right to pick up a weapon
and defend ourselves
and join together and overthrow it. I am not advocating overthrow of the United States government. Please don't try to misconstrue that. I know there'll be some folks who want to take that out of the soundbite. Let us not do that. But what I am saying is this. The Constitution has some fundamental priorities and rights that are built in. So the next time someone says, do you understand these rights as I've read them to you? You should respond back and say, no. Do you understand my rights as they are written? I'm sorry, I gave you that one for free.
We have questions. First and foremost, Pedro wants to know whether or not you're on the ballot in New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay, Pedro, hopefully that answers your question. Some of the comments were, you're telling the truth. You've already written yourself out. So people feel like because you tell the truth, you're a politician. You're supposed to lie. You're supposed to tell us what feels good.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started this journey, and I'm going to be honest with the American people, I am not a professional politician. I have never held public office in this chain that I am attempting to dismantle. So I don't know what the job description is. I didn't know we're supposed to lie. I did not know that we're supposed to spin. I did not know that the art of deflection and what we call linguistic strings are ways for us to manipulate the mind. If you have never read the book Propaganda, you should read it because they have. No one told me all of that. But as I was introduced to key folks, as I was courted around, as I was shown off as the next chosen one, I began to realize that they all spoke that way. I'm sorry, I think they call it a forked tongue. And you're right. I'm like you. I'm straight with no chaser. And I thought that's what the American people wanted.
We do.
So what I began to find out was a lot of folks were starting to gently let me know. You can't say it like that. If they say this, say that. Well, I'm sorry, the First Amendment of the Constitution says that I have the right to freedom of speech, and it shall not be infringed. So you're infringing on my right, so give me some space. And I think the last person that wore my name tried the same thing. The difference is this, folks, and I'll be honest and forthcoming in this. And I'm going to spin right into gun control.
Okay.
As a former soldier, as a highly decorated, you can look me up.
I saw the pins. I
am not, what's the gentleman from Trump's camp? Mark Burns. I am a soldier, and I have fought for this country, and I have never questioned who I was fighting for. I fought for you to have the right to do just what I'm doing right now. Say what's on your mind. Have a good night. I believe that you have the fundamental right, not the constitutional right, to defend yourself. That's personal. You have a right to defend yourself. I'm not, and I should not be trying to take that from you. Gun manufacturers, Smith & Wesson, Bushmaster, they're silent because they're making money on both sides. If you ever notice when you see these pictures from overseas of these places that are all bombed out, tore down where there's no infrastructure, they always have brand new spanking weapons that you can't even get your hands on. They've got rocket launchers. They've got brand new AKs. They've got M40s. They've got saws. They've got weapons that some of you all don't even know what I'm talking about. Yet they don't have anything else. When it comes to gun control, I believe that you should have the right to defend your home against any enemy, foreign or domestic. I do not believe that the government should restrict that. I do believe that mental health is out of control. The disposition of mental health in this country is just deplorable. And so that is why you have folks who get their hands on weapons and they do crazy things. Crazy never left the country. It didn't. I remember I saw a picture the other day where there were 6,000 members of the Ku Klux Klan standing around, and they all had their sheets on and had their arms out like this, and they were doing their thing. And above it, somebody said, and they want you to believe that all of these people just magically disappeared in the 60s. Mental health, being crazy, didn't disappear either. But we stopped taking care of those people. We started locking them up, or we just stopped caring about them. We closed the facilities, now they're homeless. I was talking to a young lady in Times Square last week, and there was actually a man sleeping in a cardboard box in Times Square while tourists were taking pictures and, oh my God, America's great. This man is sleeping in a box. The richest country on earth, symbol of power and freedom. This man is sleeping in a cardboard box. He looked up at me and he said, "Can you spare some change?" I knelt down to him, which he didn't think I was going to do. I looked him in the face and I said, "How did you get here?" And he looked at me because no one had ever talked to him. He said, "What do you mean how I got here?" I laid down. I said, No. How did you get here in life? What happened that you're here? And he said, "They put me out of my facility." So I gave him some money, but I gave him some advice also. I said, you don't give up hope that the very people that closed that facility, that there are other people on the way who are going to open it back up. So when it comes to gun control, I believe that on the individual level, that we need to protect those rights. I do believe that background checks need to be expanded so that I cannot bypass the gun store and go down to the local gun show and buy a weapon because I'm upset with someone, and then I do something heinous and everyone wonders how I got my hands on that firepower. I believe if you are a custodian of firepower, you should be responsible for it and be a responsible gun owner. You need a license to drive a car. You need a license to fly a plane. You should have to have a license to own firepower.
Well, we know the struggle is real here in Massachusetts because we have so many red laws and everything else. So we know the struggle is real. We currently have a call on the line, 617-282-0062. We're in the building live. I want to give a huge thank you because he did not have to fly up here. Literally, he flew up here to have this conversation with us. Presidential candidate, independent presidential candidate, John Fitzgerald Johnson. Been talking about him for the last couple of weeks, and now you guys get to see him, hear him, and he is in the building with us. We have less than 100 days, and you have a video and it rings true. You have less than 100 days to get on the remaining ballots. You have less than 100 days to, wake up these sleeping giants that want something different. We have people that don't want Hillary. We have people who don't want Trump. We have people who don't know that there's umpteen independents that were running for presidency that are blacked out by the media because they don't want to talk about you. I personally talked about how much they did not talk about Bernie. If it was Bernie, it was somebody from Bernie's camp that went to a Hillary or Trump rally. Like, it was never about what what Bernie was doing, what Bernie stood for. There was never any support ever in media for Bernie.
Sure.
And so if there wasn't any support for him, how dare we even believe that there could have been support for any of the currently active 30 candidates, including yourself? So,
well, first of all, when you've got 6 corporations that own 90% of the media,
y'all thought I was lying.
they tell you what to talk about. So while we're hung up on Harambe, which was a tragedy, there was something going on that none of you knew happened. While we were so busy talking about the boys down at the Olympics, there was something nobody was talking about. Because if you have a boss who's paying your bills, you do what the boss tells you to do. It is obvious that CNN is owned by Time Warner, which is Hillary Clinton's 7th biggest donor. So you're never going to really see them dig into Hillary. Look at what happened to, and I'll use this as an example. Look at what happened with Pastor Mark Burns. CNN did that expose on him after he attacked her. And they ruined him. I mean, in so many ways, he had it coming. But at the end of the day, you can't expect the media to play ball. They may want to tell the truth. They may want to give opinions, but they're being told what to do. But we as the people have some other things that we didn't have that they're struggling to get their hands around right now. For instance, the internet. We have the ability to communicate. Back in the old days, we used to talk about word of mouth. I was at the first Million Man March. And I remember I heard about it by word of mouth. And I was in Texas. And I remember everybody I talked to heard about it by word of mouth. And the U.S. government can distort and lie about what happened out there on the mall that day I was there. I still have photographs. There wasn't 1 million men on that mall. There were more than 1 million men on that mall that day who came from word of mouth. Well, nowadays we have something better than word of mouth. We have the web. You know, everyone carries a smartphone, but that's kind of an oxymoron because you have all the knowledge in the world right in your hand. Yet you use that device for anything but to make yourself smarter. How do you get the attention of the major networks? And I'm going to share this with you. When I was originally coming out for the Black Lives Matter movement events, and they were looking to pin a label on the movement, before Alicia and company stepped forward and they were running around saying, if we can just find the head, we can cut it off. I didn't have a problem keeping a swarm of cameras around me. It was a daily thing. But the moment that I declared my candidacy for the presidency, and I began to seriously want to make a difference in this country, not just in the form of protesting, but by changing laws, because that's how we make a change. Corporate media said, oh no, we can't let that happen. Oh, no. And I'm not the only one. So when you've got GE and News Corp and Disney and Viacom and Time Warner owning 90% of the news that you get, and they're in bed with the politicians. You know, the amount of money that has been paid to these networks this time around is quadruple since Obama was elected last time. These networks are bought. Think about it. Why are we having the essential Hillary Clinton tonight on CNN? Really? Doesn't that sound like a bias? Conflict of interest? We can't hear the real news because they're too busy programming you. That's why they call it programming. They're programming you. You're being misinformed. And then when you hear someone like me, I kind of wake you up a little bit. I'm trying to snatch you out of the matrix.
People say you're giving them life right now.
People need to understand that you don't just have to vote for Hillary. And I don't even want to start on Hillary. And you don't have to go with, and this is a game, folks. I'm going to call it like it is because I'm on the inside of this. If you believe for 2 seconds that Hillary is running against Trump and Trump's running against Hillary, it's a show. The Democrats and the Republicans are the same group. They trade power back and forth, but they don't allow anyone else to play in their game. Even if you have absorbent amount of money, they didn't just change the rules. Jill Stein has taken matching campaign funds. I won't take them. And the moment she did that, she became visible. Gary Johnson is now being endorsed by the Republicans. So now you see him. But if I go and say I want to purchase airtime, if I go and say, hey, let us have a town hall. The night that we did the first independent presidential debates in Lake Charles, Louisiana, Fox News purposely moved Donald Trump's broadcast to be opposite of ours, even though we had a journalist from ABC who hosted it. So you never saw it. You have to understand you don't give up power easily when you can control. And remember what this is all about, folks. Whether we're talking about the movement, whether we're talking about the nation, and I salute the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan. When you're talking about the economy, when you're talking about the gentrification of our neighborhoods, when you're talking about the restructuring of the dollar, when you're talking about trade agreements, when you're talking about our status in the world is looking at the United States right now like, you guys are nuts. Because you're about to let this group take you somewhere. And you're just letting it happen. And you're not letting it happen. You're being kept in the dark. So it is my mission as a candidate. And I'll say this for those people thinking, well, what if you don't get it? Don't worry. I'll be back in 2020. I'm not done. Because now I've learned the system. This was a learning process for me.
Chess, not checkers.
Exactly. And I'm very good at chess. Very good. So therefore, if you're still trying to figure out who you want to go for, please go to my website, onlywecanfixthis.com, study my platform. A lot of people say, well, your platform looks a lot like Bernie. No, Bernie, and I'm going to be honest, there are pictures of Bernie and I talking. We talked in Phoenix. And I let Bernie know this, and I'll say this to your listeners. I said, Bernie, you know what you got to do? You got to stop dancing around the names and keep talking about the issues. It's okay to say African American. It's okay to say black. It's okay. You're talking about us. We know you're talking about us because everything you're saying applies to us, but you won't say it. And until you laser focus it, you're not going to lock us in. But then we found out that he was really Trojan horse. Because you cannot believe in a political revolution, then turn around and say, I'm going to endorse Hillary Clinton.
You can't. That's
I'm sorry for all the people out there who felt like, but Bernie was our guy. No, Bernie had the right idea, but Bernie, and just like Hillary, they have folks that are working day and night, scouring the internet and scouring these organizations, looking at our ideas. 3 times I've posted things on my website that I heard Hillary say within 48 hours. And then I'm just stuck. Of the people, by the people, for the people. We should do this so that not just for our children, but for our children's children. I said those things, and then I watched them. I said, okay. So they're feeding off of us. We're giving them the idea. They're taking what the American people want to hear from the people that are saying it for the people. You got to understand chess, not checkers.
Let's take some of these calls because we're coming to the top of the hour,
Sure.
And people have questions.
Y'all done got me started.
People have questions about education. They have questions about immigration. They have questions about the LGBT, which you touched on that agenda. But we also have questions about international policy.
Sure.
And, you were in the Army, but do you know how to navigate those spaces and
Sure.
with those leaders?
I'm so glad you said that. I want to clarify for all my listeners and everyone who's watching. In the military, I had a rather unique position. I worked with most of the senior leadership, all the way up to the congressional level. Worked at the Pentagon. So I've rubbed elbows and I understand culture. I've lived around the world. But before I get into that, let me say this. When it comes to foreign policy, there's a book that everyone should read by Ian Bremmer called Superpower. It is required reading for presidential candidates.
Say it again?
It's called Superpower.
By?
Ian Bremmer.
Okay.
And in it, what he does is he details 3 models, one of which the United States must adapt in order to continue to survive. And I'll give you those models very shortly. Very, very, very compact fashion. The first one is we can be super cop. We can run around the world and try to fix everybody's business, and we can hold them and make them beholden to us with money. That's not going to work because we'll overextend ourselves and we'll collapse like every other great empire has. I'm sorry, we are the United States. The other model is we can be a separatist. We can pull all our resources home. We'll just take care of us. But if we do that, the world will come knocking at our door for real. I mean, ask yourself a question. Why do you think no war has been fought on U.S. soil? Because we fight everywhere else. And then the last model is to strike a balance with like-minded countries that have the same ideals and principles and morals and values as we do, but not to be intolerant of those who don't. Just because someone has a different culture doesn't automatically make them lesser than you. It doesn't make you better than them. If you can strike that balance and form that coalition, then we tackle problems together. You cannot say we're going to attack a country as a coalition, but the American soldiers are the only one going and fighting. So those are the three models. As president, I believe in the third model.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the United States is sending mixed signals right now. We want to be the cop in some places. We want to be separatists in others. And then we want to be kumbaya with others. So we're not practicing what we're preaching. We're all over the place. And a double-minded man is unstable. Okay?
So really quickly, let's take these calls. 617-282-0062. Waking up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. Currently in the building with independent presidential candidate John Fitzgerald Johnson. What questions do you have? 617-282-0062. Good rising, baby. You're live. Thank you for your patience.
Good morning.
Hey, Miss G. Talk to us.
I just called because, good morning, Mr. Johnson. I have one question is a two-part question. One question is, what platform are you going to take in improving race relations in this country? The second question is, why did you choose independent platform? I know you expounded on it, but I just kind of wonder why a black man would choose the independent platform, because everyone that went into that area got voted out. So why would you choose that platform? And the other thing I want to say is, I watch TV One, so I can get the black perspective, and I don't even want to indulge in Fox and MSNBC. So maybe you could give us an idea of what news programs to look at.
Thank you, Ms. G. Love and appreciate you. Great questions.
Good morning, Ms. G. That was a great series of questions. I shall now tackle them in the order that you asked them. On the issue of racism in this country, and you asked about how you deal with it. You know, it's interesting. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, folks. There are other places on this planet where there have been racial disparities that caused disharmony and caused the country to become unstable. And they dealt with them in a multitude of ways, Germany being a great example. In this country, before we can start to talk about, and I'm going to quote Malcolm X here, and I hope no one gets offended because it's the truth, and I just give it to you straight. There can be no black-white unity until first there is some black unity. We cannot begin to love another race until first we begin to love ourselves. But we can't do that unless we have space to do it. Okay? So in this particular country, until the United States as a government openly acknowledges the institution that has resulted from the institution that existed and makes actions, and I don't want to use the word reparations because it's much, much more further than that, of the institution of slavery that has stigmatized this country and created a race of people who are being systematically denied on so many levels, until the U.S. government openly not only acknowledges this, but begins to take steps through programs, systems, and so forth to rectify that particular piece of our history, then we cannot move into the next piece, which is this. Once that system is in place, and please let me clarify to those folks who probably don't understand what we're getting at. If you are a blood descendant of any one of the individual family lines that can be verified and traced of the slave trade, you are entitled to restitution and reparation by the United States. We've given money to other groups as restitution and reparations, but you've received nothing. An apology is not enough. Economically, educationally, politically, you have been systematically denied, and to this day, you're still under attack. Those things have to be addressed by the government, not just at the local level, not just at the movement level, but at the executive level. It has to happen. After we get that piece rolled out, the next thing that has to happen is, you know, freedom of speech is something that we endear very much in this country. However, we have got to draw the line on what defines derogatory racism, that it's okay if you want to feel that way. But since some of us cannot stop at just feeling, we have to go beyond the federal definition of hate crimes, and we have to call it what it is. You see, in Germany, it is illegal to show the swastika, to do the Heil Hitler, or to even represent the Aryan nation. It is illegal. You got to talk to somebody about that. You got to go somewhere. And if you haven't noticed, the resurgence of racism, the deterioration of racial bias in this country, it didn't start with Donald Trump. All he did was played on it. But if you take a trip down south, Athens, Georgia, all the way down Jacksonville, the Klan is back and they're back strong. They meet every Thursday. You can stop by. They're burning crosses and waving sheets. You think I'm joking? Come on through. Because you have to understand it's not illegal, because they've been told it's your First Amendment right. Yet we classify other groups that do this as terrorist groups. And we have laws that we've put in place of what happens if you're designated a terrorist group. We got to fix that. As president, if I couldn't get it through congressional consent, then I would probably enter into a war with the Congress, because they would try to override every executive decision that I would make that would push us in that direction. We're not saying any race is better than any other, but we're saying that if it's a race, and you know what a race is, we're all moving forward. Some of us are so far behind on the track, they'll never catch up and win. And if it doesn't start at the top, then you can't expect anything to happen in the middle or at the bottom. Your next question, Ms. G, and I thought it was very good, was why independent? As I said before, I started off as a Democrat. I've always considered myself as a Democrat. But once I started to actually pursue the presidency, I began to do my research on the Democratic Party. And I don't like being told what to think. I do not like being told that I can't speak the truth. I do not like being told that I have to lie to the very people who need help. And there's no way on this planet that I'm going to become a Republican. So therefore, I land in what they categorize as an independent. I think that's kind of interesting. They call us independent, when actually all we are candidates. The Declaration of Independence. So if I'm independent, I'm just a person standing on the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. I mean, I think that's what it is. Last piece to your question was, you asked me about what would I advise you to watch. You know, TV One, you know, they're great, you know, and I know some of the folks that are behind that organization. But I remember when Bob Johnson owned BET, when it really was BET. And they could not figure out how to stop that juggernaut. If you remember, even after the OJ trial, the first place he ran to give an interview to was on BET. As a matter of fact, we got our black news. For a little while, if we weren't reading the final call, we were watching BET. Well, now BET is owned by Viacom. And Viacom is anything but interested in black entertainment, television, or anything that has to do with us. And TV One tried to fill that place. But I would encourage you to do what we would do in the old school. There are a great number of, first of all, I would tell you, don't watch television, to be honest with you, because television is designed to program you. And everyone has some form of program that they have to adhere to keep their advertisers happy. But there are still in existence to this day certain publications. Is it Mother Jones? Mother Jones, and even out here in Pittsburgh, the Hill Publisher. There are some publications that still exist within the African American community where they do just what Tayla was doing when I walked in. They just get it to you straight. And hey, I was waiting to hear something I hadn't heard. Everything you talked about, I had already heard about, but it was good to hear you saying it, because it's not on the regular news. So you have to realize something also, Ms. G. The news they give you, it ain't news. They're going to tell you about a traffic accident. This guy got arrested in the weather. That's not news.
You forgot the puppy that was stuck in a tree, though.
Well, the puppy in the tree, see, that's going to be details at 11. That's how they get you. See? That's how they get you. So I would encourage you to seek out those publications that are still in existence, that are still controlled by the 47 million of us in this country. And I just got to say that because most people, they brainwash you into not understanding 47 million people is a nation within a nation. But if you don't understand how big that is, let me give you this one for free. The population of African Americans within the United States is bigger than 123 out of 126 countries on earth. You are a nation. You just don't have any land. And as Malcolm said, what empowers you? Land. What is war about? Land. Y'all got me started. Thank you, Ms. G. I hope I answered your question.
Love and appreciate you, Ms. G. I want to give a shout out to the caller who's currently on hold. I have a question because you recited Malcolm, so I have to ask: are you fearful that they are going to ostracize you, or you'll be ostracized, or I don't know how to ask this question because I want to say white people won't endorse you, but I've seen people who endorse you.
Let me say this, and I'm glad you brought that up. Up until, and I'm not going to publicize his name because I don't believe in lifting him up. Up until the racists went into the church in South Carolina and killed those people who were worshiping. They were worshiping their Creator, which had nothing to do with color as far as I'm concerned, because we're all children of the Creator. And I was there for that because Senator Pinckney had become a friend of mine, because I was there for the Walter Scott situation. And Senator Pinckney, you guys got to read between the lines here. Senator Pinckney was the one who went to the floor of the South Carolina Senate and got the body cam bill passed right after the Walter Scott. We went with him. That bill had been on the floor for 2 years, but they kept blowing it off. But so much focus was on the state of South Carolina, and all the heavyweights was in town, and Governor Nikki and the Department of Justice are running around. They had to sign it. And then he gets killed. So now we're back in South Carolina. Well,
Hold on. Clarify this for me. Who was killed?
Senator Pinckney.
They killed the senator?
Who do you think was the preacher that was killed at the AME church?
So this is much bigger than I thought it was.
It's always been much bigger than this. You asked, I told you.
Because they did mention a senator was killed, but
he was also the preacher.
And passed the body cam. So what if the little boy was sent in there to kill him?
Well, that's another show for another time. And to all my people from South Carolina, you already know, because I just talked to y'all yesterday about what's going on with y'all down there. They got another situation. But anyway, the point I'm making is, when I went for this here, I did not go as an activist. I went because a friend was gone. And so while I was there, still in my Black Lives Matter frame of mind at the time, there was an event that changed me forever. And you can Google this. It was the Bridge to Peace. The call was for maybe 300, 400 people to come out on the Arthur Ravenel Bridge and just have 9 seconds of silence for the victims. And they were only expecting 300, 400. 30,000 people showed up. 30,000. 70% of them were white. The mass media didn't even want to cover it, but the foreign media did. And on that day, I never saw so many people of all races, but mostly Caucasians. Just as you were saying in that article about who's now embracing the BLM movement. These people represented with Malcolm. I have to keep going back to Malcolm because he's the only one that said this. Other people said other things. Don't think he's the only one that I read. I read everybody. I read everything. That is why other people, when I'm speaking to them, I speak in terms that they can relate to.
Okay.
But since I'm talking to my people, I'm speaking in terms that you can relate to. And if you're going to be the president of the United States, you have to have the ability to know how to shift your vernacular, to break it down when you need to get down in the streets and talk to skizzy. You know what I mean?
You brought up your age now. You told your age with that one.
Well, if I told you I was born when they killed Kennedy, you should know how old that.
Yeah, we now, even though you look like
So,
you're
so,
25.
so that was my turning point. And it was on that day when I saw all of these different folks of different races and different colors, and they were young and old, and they were in wheelchairs, and they came, and they kept coming. They couldn't even all fit on the bridge. I saw a glimpse of Martin's dream. I saw a glimpse of it. They didn't care about color. They cared about cause. But I knew that that was a fleeting moment if we didn't change the laws. I need to run for president.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take these other callers. 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller, you're live. Good rising, my love.
Hello?
Hey, Reggie B. Reggie.
She knows all the calls.
How are you doing? Give me a second, Reggie. Thank you so much for those who are just now tuning in. Big City 101.3 FM, waking up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. We are currently in the studio. This man flew up last night, got to Boston last night so we could be on air live in the studio with independent presidential candidate John Fitzgerald Johnson. I've been talking about him for a couple weeks now, and he's in our building. We went ahead and, thoughts become things and words are creative, and we created this very moment in time. And what we can create is him being on the Massachusetts ballot so we can go ahead and vote for him because he is on how many other ballots?
We're on 47 right now.
47 other ballots, 47 states.
47 states.
Pedro, New Jersey is one of them. I thank you for your patience, Reggie. Go ahead and speak.
Right now, I'm currently at the Dearborn School greeting the children as they attend their first day of school, but that didn't stop me or deter me from watching your show, because last night you told me who was going to come into Boston and I should be there, but I thought it would be better if I come and greet these youth, but at the same time, I'm going to split my time between the youth and this brother, Mr. John Fitzgerald Washington. And
Johnson, baby. John Fitzgerald Johnson. I don't want you writing in Washington.
No, I didn't say Washington, not the Johnson.
Okay, Reggie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This brother is flooring me right now. This brother is straight flooring me because when he talks and he speaks and he says the stuff that he's saying, I say that to myself all the time, and I say to myself, I got to get around people who are like-minded like me, because everything that he's talking about is what I talk about when I do my documentary show. Do you know that, Taylor? Because you hosted with me. And I'm telling you, I got to meet this brother. If I got to go down south to meet this brother, I'm going to do just that. Because I got to take this brother breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever he wants, and sit down and have a conversation with him. And the stuff that he's speaking is all true. And I hope that the listeners at 101.3 Big City FM are really taking heed and listening to this man. This man is speaking truth on all levels. And if they don't get this brother and what he's saying, I don't know what it's going to take, because right now, for me, and your shows, Taylor, and this brother, it's ultimate. This is ultimate right here. Out of all the guests you had, this is ultimate. And this is speaking truth. And he's talking some serious stuff. And if they don't get it, I don't know what else to say, Taylor. I just don't. Thank you, Mr. John Fitzgerald Johnson, for flying all the way from the south to the north, to the east, to come up here. And I said it right. I'm just beyond words right now, so I'm mixing myself up. Coming from the south to the north to speak to us, and you didn't have to do that. And I humbly, say to you, brother, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I have to say to you. And we are going to have to roll up our sleeves, because we, us, you, and I have work to do. I'm out, y'all. Peace.
Thank you, Reggie. Love and appreciate you. Hope you're having a magnificent day today. Please do not forget, today is the day that the children have their first day of school. And shout out to Carlos Enriquez, who facilitated, people just showing up. Show up at your child's school. Give high fives to the kids coming in. Tell them good luck. Have a good day, because some of those children walked out of home today with whatever situations are going on at home and need an adult, need somebody in a position to say, you know what, I hope you have a good day today. I hope you have a magnificent day today. I love you. And just give them that pat on the back. A lot of our children need that. Not everybody is getting that nurturing at home. So please, if you do have time, stop off at one of these schools and just give the high fives to the kids. 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller. You're live. Thank you for your patience.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Taylor, I've been on hold, and I was like, do
they know I'm on hold. I'm just listening.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. So I have, because I was on hold and I'm not able to hear anyone in the car, I missed what the last caller said. But one of my first questions was, before you hang up, can I get, again, the guidance on who I need to write to? I already have the name written down correctly, but I just don't know like the verbiage and who I'm sending my letter to. The primary question is, as a gun owner, I don't believe in their proposed form of gun control, and I do believe that it is a ploy to disarm the people. And because I do know the history of the government, I know that they are clearly doing things deliberately to make things happen, to have the ripple effect and start instituting all types of laws. So my question to you, Mr. Johnson, is what would your plan for gun control be in terms of not allowing such a heavy influx of firearms into the Black community?
Before you answer that question, Mr. Johnson, I do want to ask, baby, you said, who do you direct your letter to? And what letter are you in reference to?
I thought in the beginning, Mr. Johnson said we need to write the letters and send them to, I thought, the counselor or the senator to let them know that we want him on the ballot.
No, sweetheart. What I wasn't talking about you. It's what a candidate would have to do. I was actually illustrating the uphill battle that they place in front of the candidates for us to get on the ballot for each state, as opposed to the Democrats and the Republicans being granted automatic ballot access. You don't have to write a letter. They require us to write these letters. And each letter is not the same letter. It's not a form letter. Each state has a different format for the letter. So you got to call their Secretary of Electors office, and then you got to ask for the letter, and they send you the letter. You got to fill all the information in. Your vice president's got to sign it. And then you have to have the names of the electors from the Electoral College that will support you. How many folks even know who's in the Electoral College when you go to cast your vote? So that's the clarification. Additionally, the second part of your question with regards to gun control. You know, it's interesting. You talked about something before that kind of dovetails into that, and that's this piece right here. The militarization of the police force has created a mindset where the police now think of you all as enemy combatants. When I was in the military, that's exactly how we thought of individuals in the host nation that we were in. And you cannot have that type of mentality and protect the population. But if you consider the population to be enemy combatants and you're militarized through gear and tactics, then there's no way that you can serve and protect. Because when I was a soldier, we weren't there to serve and protect anyone. We were there to seize and destroy on behalf of our government. And so therefore, the demilitarization of the police force falls under my platform for police reform. It's actually a 10-step plan that I've actually outlined before, and ironically enough was shared with President Barack Obama, and he actually quoted a piece of it when he was standing on the front lawn of the White House with the Chinese premier last year, which I thought was a sign that, hey, something's about to change, but I guess it was just a nice talking point. But as far as how we would control not just weapons in the African-American community, because as I've heard said many times, last time I checked, I might see a few liquor stores and I might see some foreign folks who have some stores that are in our community, but they're not contributing back. They're just taking that money and fixing up their communities. I don't see no gun factories. I don't see any ports with ships coming in with guns. I don't see gun shows, yet I see more weapons in the community. So to affect all communities, it's not just the Black community. We would have to begin to control the dissemination of weapons, period. And that goes right back to the pipelines from the gun manufacturers to how these weapons end up where they do. You know, the laws right now for me to sell a weapon to another person as a private purchase or private exchange are pretty lax in some states. Some states don't even have any requirements whatsoever on any particular type of weapon. We'd have to change that. Additionally, the class of weapon that you own, and please, let's shatter a myth here. When they say assault weapon, you really need to study the definition of that term. There's no such thing as an assault weapon, okay? What they're saying is that, well, that weapon looks scary. No, the weapon is not scary. You're afraid of the weapon, okay? The weapon is simply a tool. that is designed to do something for a certain purpose. As a gun owner, as a weapons collector myself, and as a very highly trained shooter, and someone made a joke once, they said, you'll be the first president that won't die of being shot, you probably die in a shootout, because I'm going to arm myself. But at the end of the day, the whole front row need to look out. So at the end of the day, we would have to look out how, from the manufacturer, point of manufacture, to the point of demarcation from distribution, to the point of retail, the accountability of those weapons. We had a situation in Virginia where they found out that the same gun shop that was selling weapons to the drug dealers and populating them in the African-American neighborhoods was the same gun shop that supplied the police. So you have to understand that arms dealers, whether they're at the local, state, federal, or international level, they profit from all of this disharmony. We have to tighten in and rein them in. Gun manufacturers are some of the biggest contributors to political campaigns. The gun lobby is bigger than the NRA. Do not be deceived by that sidebar or that mental game. They play mental games with you. Yet when these weapons make it into our communities, and these communities are communities where there's no economic development, so there are no jobs. When there are no jobs, people begin to become despondent because they can't meet basic needs. People can't meet basic needs, then their lifestyle starts to deteriorate. Their lifestyle starts to deteriorate, they lose hope. Now comes desperation. Now comes violence and crime. Oh, we'll just throw them some guns and we'll let them kill themselves. I am not accusing anyone of doing this on purpose. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But before we can start to limit and control the pipeline of weapons, we have to concurrently, at the same time, begin to rebuild those communities, those crime-ridden. You talked about Baltimore. You talked about dilapidated homes. During the Freddie Gray situation, we led a 7-mile march from where you saw the CVS burned all the way down to City Hall. That really wasn't what blew my mind. What blew my mind was we passed 7 miles of destroyed, burnt out, boarded up homes. No schools, no hospitals, no stores, no nothing. No one was investing money in that. And they're ripe for someone to come in, us, pooling our dollars to come together. I want to give a big shout out, as they say, to Christine Johnson down in Atlanta, Georgia. She is the owner of First Citizens Trust Bank, a Black woman who owns her own bank. They just did a story on her in USA Today. 80,000 African Americans moved their accounts to her bank, and she was wondering how she was going to keep the doors open. Now, if we can just start to pool our resources, $3 trillion a year. We have been brainwashed into becoming consumers when we used to be the producers, the builders, the architects, the doctors. Now we're comfortable, or we appear to be comfortable, giving our money to everybody except ourselves. Rebuild our communities. Pride comes back to the communities. Jobs are back in the communities. Control the pipeline of weapons. Weapons have always been in our community. They've always been there, but the conditions have not. And now that those conditions are rampant and there's no recourse for them, crime is rampant. Have you been to Chicago lately? Have you driven through the south side or the west side of Chicago? I did. It was a nightmare. Not because people were running wild with guns, folks, but because of the poverty. This is the United States of America, yet poverty more severe in some places in this country than in third world countries, when they don't even have running water. Akon, the rapper, singer, said to me that when he came to the United States and he saw what we call the projects, he cried because in his country, where he came from, they didn't have running water or lights in their projects. He says things that we take for granted. Yet we still have people in poverty.
So, I just looked at the time.
Oh, we could talk, sister. We could talk.
We could, but we have to get out of here. So we're gonna go ahead and take this last caller, and then we're gonna, for those that are listening.
Before you do that, I have to say one thing.
Absolutely.
That you said at the top of the hour.
Yes.
And I have to say this. I'm probably the only candidate you're going to hear say this. When you want to talk about student loan reform,
oh Lord, yes.
which is tantamount to one of my platforms, a lot of people say, well, how are you going to do it? And Bernie was talking about taking money from one place to another. No. You know, student loans are the only thing that you cannot write off. on a bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy, you could die. They still want
You're
their
stuck
money.
with it for the rest of your life. So we would have to reform the bankruptcy laws to allow you to write it off. If we can bail out the big banks, you should be able to write off a student loan. So it's not the loan that's the problem, it's the bankruptcy laws that are the problem. I would change those, either by executive order or through congressional cooperation. And then all of you all who are saddled, because the average college graduate, 5 years after graduating from college, still hadn't secured that high-paying job that they were promised when they took the loan and took those 4 years of college. So they're saddled with debt. You should be able to write that off on the bankruptcy.
You got my vote. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. We cannot take these calls, but what we are going to do is transfer from on air to YouTube. So we're going to keep the Facebook rolling. We're going to keep the YouTube rolling. And we're going to go ahead and close out. Please give us your platform. How can we reach you? How can we get you on the ballot? Is there anything we can do to get you on the ballot? What is it as independent presidential candidate, John Fitzgerald Johnson, can we do this for you?
The law stipulates that you must write my name the exact way that it has been declared on my candidacy, which is public knowledge on the FEC website. You have to write John Fitzgerald Johnson. You have two choices. A, you can sign petitions requesting that I am added to the ballot. In this state, I think it's 1,000 signatures. How long will it take to get that together? Or if that doesn't work, because there are deadlines. There are deadlines. If you miss the deadline, you can actually go into the booth and you can write in the candidate's name.
And what is your name correct?
Just as I said, John Fitzgerald Johnson.
Okay, so we just got the green light that we do not have to stop. We do not have to stop.
Well, I mean,
so we got the green light on that.
I've got frequent flyer miles now. So okay. and for the gentleman who called from the school, which I think is noble, because we have a saying: in order to be one, you got to see one. And the problem with a lot of our young men is we don't have a blueprint for them to see anymore. They're males, but they're not men.
Yes.
So unless you have a blueprint, see something that looks, walks, and talks like you, you're not going to know how to walk and talk like a man and treat a woman correctly, because you've never seen it done before. So what you're doing, I hold that in high esteem, but I wanted to clarify. I'm from the South, but I live in the state of Ohio, in Cincinnati, one of the biggest swing states in the United States.
You guys have, I was looking up houses out there. You guys have estates that look like multi-million-dollar mansions that are going for $250,000.
The real estate value out there is not as high as it is, and that's another story for another time. We'll talk about them taking care of themselves, okay? But when we had the NAACP National Convention, which was in Cincinnati, I spoke after Hillary Clinton. And I remember what they said at the convention when it was over. Don Gallimore from Nevada came to me and he said, "We're passing your name around," because they thumbed her down. They were not happy. When the American Legion, notice they're having all their conventions in Cincinnati. The American Legion, which is the biggest organization of veterans, they had Hillary come out last week and they had Trump come out last week. And you know, I just want 5 minutes to say what I have to say, because I'm a veteran. And same thing, we gotta get this guy. Now, when I leave your city, LPAC, which is one of the PACs that supported Bernie, reached out to me, and for you folks who are keeping up, Political Action Committee, reached out to me a couple of days ago and said, you know, we've been watching you, and we'd be honored if you would come to New York and lead the parade for the families of the 50 firefighters from Brooklyn who lost their lives in the World Trade Center. I have an office on the 21st floor of World Trade Center 1. So I work there. So every day I sit in that building when I'm in New York and I'm not in Cincinnati, and I think about, where was I when that happened? I was a soldier. And I was so moved by that, but I never thought that 15 years later I would be in the new structure. So of course I accepted that. But when you accept help or an invitation from a PAC, remember what we said. No one gives you money for nothing. No one's giving money to the media for nothing. No one's committing funds to a candidate for nothing. You're going to do what we say, when we say, if we say, or if we say not. But what we have is the power of our vote. And here's what I'm getting at. There are 321 million people in this country. The latest research shows that 48% of registered voters are independent. They don't even identify. Now you have to understand what that means. The total number of Democrats and the total number of Republicans still don't outnumber all of the independents. So if we could get all of the independents to vote a certain way, and I'm going to be honest here, Gary Johnson has no platform. Jill Stein, have you read the Green Party's platform? They're nuts. They want to roll us back to sticks and stones. Not going to happen. We're not going to get rid of Wi-Fi, okay? We're moving forward as a society. John Fitzgerald is of the people, by the people, a victim just like the people, subjected to the system that the people are subjected to, wanting retribution, wanting restoration, wanting reparation, but also wanting an equal fair shot for everybody. Own yours, our own mine, and we all gonna be all right. And you need a president that is going to be able to say that, not just to you, but to other world leaders. I stand behind President Obama for what happened with the president from the Philippines. Now, I didn't take it personal that you cursed me, but you're not going to disrespect this office while I'm in it.
So really quickly, 617-282-0062, I'm going to take this caller. And then we have a controversial question that came from Facebook. And I would like for you, after that, to speak on the big banking machine.
Sure.
As well as restoring voting rights for the 6 Million Redeem Act and mandatory minimum laws. So we have a few questions. We're going to tackle them one by one. 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller, you're live. Good rising, my love. I guess we had them on hold so long they don't even want to speak anymore.
Are you playing music while they're on hold?
No, not at all. They get to
Advertising?
listen. So, my love, you are currently live. If you want to say something, I do thank you for your patience. I apologize for your hold time, but you're live. Hey, how are you?
Good.
What question do you have, my love?
Wait, are you talking to me?
Oh, God. Not anymore. 617-282-0062. So one of the controversial questions that came up was about you being an artist and being a DJ and your DJ name being Master J. And if you meant to portray yourself as the legendary DJ, Master J.
I don't understand the question.
So the question is, so you're a performer or you were a DJ in your former life. And the question is about whether or not Grandmaster J and you taking on that name.
What is the question?
I guess that's the question. That's the only thing that was written to explain.
Are they trying to determine if I am one and the same?
Yes, I guess so.
Yes, I am one and the same.
So you're the 1970s Grandmaster J.
Yes.
From back in the day.
From back in the day.
Okay. You're Grandmaster J.
You didn't know that.
No.
You read my bio.
Yes, I did.
Malcolm X used to be called Malcolm Little. And there's a saying, if you are talking to me about a person you knew 10, 15, 3 years ago, you don't know that person anymore. And we have all, and you too, go through transformations. We all had a life before we had a life that we have now. So if this person is trying to figure out, is this the same person that used to be in hip hop? That's in my bio, but that's not the person that I am now.
Okay. All right.
Why do you think I was always asking you about what's the name of that song?
That song?
And did you get that? And
see, I saw the Grandmaster J, but I really did not put I didn't put the two together.
You know, I'll speak on this real quickly about that. You know, last year when BLM was getting a lot of focus, one of the outcries that I heard was that hip hop was being silent and that hip hop wasn't getting in the middle of this issue. A year later, Jesse Williams makes a speech, and everyone says they applauded it, and it became fashionable now. You know, Beyonce did her show at the Super Bowl, and it became fashionable now that everyone's making a statement. And we have a saying about people when they wake up. We're happy that you're awake, but we've been awake. And I awoke a long time ago. So that life went away, and ever since then, I've been on this path. But I'm glad someone recognizes me, because that's another demographic that doesn't vote, that we need to vote. And if that's how you identify with me, because I know some of the hood guys are going, no, I don't even vote, but Jay running, I'll vote. Good. Get to the ballot box. This is bigger than music. This is our future that we're talking about. And if you don't know the meaning of the word police state, everything that's been amended to the Constitution can be removed from the Constitution.
Vote or die. You spoke on an interview, and I heard you talking about the vote or die mindset and how we need to come out of the vote or die mindset, because it's not a fad. It is like, we need to understand what's going on in society. We have to understand what's going on in politics. We have to actually be a part of the system in order to change the system. We can't just throw a label on it, vote or die, and make it into a fad. Like, this is something that is long-standing. We have to give homage to our elders and our ancestors that came before us, that fought and died for us to vote. And to continue that legacy, we have to be a part of the political process.
Everything that you said, I agree with. You asked me the question, and then you answered it. Let me elaborate on that a little more. You know, we're one of the only demographics of people that have, for some reason, forgotten that it's just like a relay race. Someone's got the baton. And in order for you to win the race, it's not how fast you run. It's how well you pass the baton to the next runner. You heard me talk earlier about the hole that was blown in our social fabric by the crack era, that no one seems to remember or want to talk about anymore. We lost an entire generation in our progression. That's why we have so many broken homes and we have so many single parents now, because a lot of those men, well, they're doing time. That's what we talked about as far as the incarceration piece. But at the end of the day, if you're going to take up the fight, if you're going to take up the baton, or if you're going to run the race without the baton, at least understand that you're supposed to have one. We're not reinventing the wheel here, folks, in a lot of ways. And if you study history, you'll find out that those folks who would consider themselves our adversaries, they never stopped running and they never stopped passing the baton. They just made us stumble and drop ours. So when you hear me talk about things like no justice, no peace, because in actuality, the opposite of peace is war. And I've been to war. And to go to war, it takes preparation. It takes supplies. It takes finance. It takes weapons. It takes strategy. And then it takes execution. So unless you're prepared to run the race, you're not going to win. And when you start talking about affecting the political system, just like I told you, this has been a learning process for me this last year. I thought running for the presidency was simply filling out the paperwork and you get out there and you make a speech and you get elected. Sounded simple because that's how they have us thinking at street level. Once you start to actually get into the system and you see the systems within the systems and the requirements within the requirements within the requirements within the deadlines and the relationships and the money and the funding, before you see the face of your enemy, before you'll back out of that game and come back in it again when you got everything you need to try to win. So when I'm looking at folks who are standing up saying, yeah, I support the movement, I'm going to look you in the face and say, how? because that's action. Supporting is action. That's why child support is an action. I heard you speak on that on one of your videos, but we're not going to talk about that. That's a show. I'll fly back up there for another time. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying in a nutshell is, people, if you're going to avail yourself to a process, avail yourself to the process in a form of action. Do what you can. Just because the next person can do more doesn't mean you should do nothing.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned child support, because that was actually a question that came up about what would you as president do about Social Security Title 4D, which for every dollar that a man or woman gives in child support, the state is kicked back 60 cents for every dollar. And if you're one of those I'm sorry, Pedro, 66 cents for every dollar. And if you are one of those states that meet your quota, we'll go ahead and throw in a bonus 2 cents for you. And just the fact that, you know, it pays the judges' salaries and, you know.
Listen, Taylor, listen. One of the beauties of being of the people, by the people, for the people, is I'm one of you. I'm in that system. I pay my child support.
Hold on, what?
Hold on.
We could have a president that pays child support.
Hey, listen, I'm of the people. See, let me tell you something. You can't tell me how to overcome an addiction if you ain't never done a drug. Okay? You can't tell me how to win a war if you've never been in a fight. As we say in the ministry, you can't you can't preach to a spirit or minister to a spirit that you haven't already defeated, or it will consume you. So I can speak from both sides of that. Number one, under Janet Reno, Attorney General Janet Reno put certain provisions into the federal law that criminalized the child support system to the point where it became beneficial to the states to keep individuals so embellished in it, so ingrained in it, that it no longer served the purpose of what it was designed for. While I believe that every parent, male or female, should do their equal part for the children that they birthed, period. Those are your genes walking around. I applaud every man and woman who steps in it, because I've been that person also who's raised someone else's child. I applaud you for that. But at the end of the day, you made them, you take care of them. That purpose is noble. But all of these kickbacks, interest rates, ongoing fees, and then we tie it into other facets. The State Department. I'm going to deny you the ability to leave the country.
Take away your license.
I'm going to take away your ability to drive yourself around. I'm going to take away your ability to practice your trade. Not because you're not paying, but because you owe so much. And we tend to paint everyone with a broad brush. If your case takes 3 years to be resolved, when the case is resolved, and then they say you're going to pay back to the day that child was born, you automatically have this huge amount. And you ain't missed a payment yet. But by federal law, we can now suspend all your stuff. Wow. This is criminal. So what would I do? We'd have to overhaul that system.
Immigration, intent versus impact.
Yes. Wow. You brought up something that, for you to say that, I'm not sure if you picked that up from one of my previous speeches or you know the concept. In the military, we're taught intent versus impact. And for those folks who are listening who don't know what that means, in a nutshell, what it means is this. And think about this the next time you plant a seed with your mouth. No matter what you say, what your intentions were. Oh, I was just playing. Or I meant to be serious. Or I was just joking. You have no control over the impact that it is going to have on another human being. Intent versus impact. Now let us correlate that to immigration. What they've done here is, and you have to be careful with this, is the United States government plays games with terminology. What we used to call collateral damage, they have a new name for it. What we used to call shell shock, they call PTSD now. And it's a medical condition. You have to be careful of terminology. Immigration is you leaving your country, coming to this country, staying here long enough to apply for immigration, naturalization status, take the test, so forth, and be granted citizenship. or you can join our military. And if you serve long enough, the deal is you now become a naturalized citizen. That's immigration. Slaves were not immigrants. They were hostages. People who crossed the border of a sovereign nation without the consent of that nation, you're not immigrating here. You have entered the country in violation of existing laws. That's all that means. And let's be clear with that. However, and I've said this publicly, I do not believe that you deport 11 million people. What you do is you transform them into legitimate taxpayers. People complain about these people being an unfair burden on social systems that are here to help folks that were born here who need help. There's more of them on welfare than us. There's more of them getting free education than us. Well, the reason that you're upset is because you pay your taxes. And your taxes are what fund those social programs. And you got some heartburn with some folks that you feel are taking advantage of your dollars. So I would not deport anyone. I would not build a wall. If you've never been down to the U.S. border with Mexico, I've lived in El Paso for 4 years. There's already a very long wall type gate situation with Border Patrol on it. And President Obama has beefed up this force over the last few years. Now, keeping people out is one thing, but dealing with the folks that are already here, you must understand, and I heard you say this earlier, this entire nation is nothing but a group of immigrants. The only people who have the right to talk about an immigration problem are the Native Americans. And we don't hear nothing from them because they confined to a little piece of land somewhere that they still fight. They got to fight over today for the immigrants. So come on, y'all. For real. As they say in the streets, I got to keep it 100.
Big City 101.3 FM, waking up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. We are currently, I know this is not our usual time slot, but I do thank you for tuning in. We are currently in the building with independent presidential candidate John Fitzgerald Johnson. He is on how many ballots in how many states?
We're in 47 states right now.
47 states right now. We're working on Massachusetts. And what other, aside from Massachusetts, what other states are you not on the ballot for?
North Carolina, which is incidental because if you notice, I shot my commercial in front of the North Carolina State House, kind of sending them a message, right? Alaska, Hawaii, Wyoming, Colorado.
We're pretty liberal. Why wouldn't you be on our ballot already?
Well, I would have to ask the individuals who are actually doing the signature gathering because this was handled by a team of folks in each particular state. So I would have to go back and find out. In some states, I'll tell you what happened. We got the signatures, but the state disqualified the signatures. And I'll tell you how they nitpick. Like they'll say, "Oh, well, we got their names, but their date of birth is wrong."
Lord have mercy.
Or they'll come back and say, "You know, the date of birth is right, but the name don't match. It's spelled wrong. You got to go back." That means we have to go back
and find that person.
And think about it. If we found that person on the street corner, just some guy standing out there, "Hey, would you vote for?" Yeah, they sign it. They walk away. They got to hunt that person down. What they do is they create such an uphill battle for you. This was done on purpose. And here's why. I did some research, and I wanted to know why these laws existed, because, of course, I immediately started thinking it was racial, and it wasn't. What it was that in the early days of this country, there were so many folks vying for the position of the presidency that some folks would attempt anything to get onto these ballots so that they could be voted on. So they wanted to make rules that would slow these folks down. A lot of these rules are archaic, and they need to go away. Someone asked me, in your first 100 days as president, what would be 3 things that you would do? And I said, the first thing I would do is abolish the Commission on Presidential Debates so that everyone has a fair shot. The second thing I would do is legalize marijuana.
Legalize it.
Thank you. And that's because of the income that it would generate. And then the third thing will be immediate campaign reform with regards to campaign financing. Okay. And there's another piece to this. Most folks don't know this, but corporate donations to political organizations are not reportable. We're listed as a 521c. So if you donate to my political campaign, the Committee to Elect John Fitzgerald Johnson, I have to report that. But if GE decides they want to slide me a couple million.
And you know GE just slid in Boston. It's funny that you mentioned their name twice already.
Well, because I used to work for GE. That's why.
Lord, this you're packaged well. You have so many facets to you. I do want to take these calls. Thank you so much for your patience. Good rising, caller, you're live. Hello, baby. Hey, peace and blessings. You're live.
I was just listening to the radio, but at the same time, I remember since I've been in this country like 20 years, it's the first time I hear somebody sound like they're ready to be president. And Mr. Johnson, I applaud you, okay? That's what I got to say.
Thank you so much. You know what? I want to applaud you because you waited on hold just to say that, and I appreciate you.
It comes easy, so you have to work for what you want.
Thank you so much. So, last but not least, good rising caller, you're live. Baby, you're the last caller, good rising.
How's it going?
How are you?
Good. In support of for president, and I will be putting your name in the ballot because what you said earlier, I totally agree with, and I've told people when we talk about this Hillary Trump thing, I said it's bull. They're in it together. I said there's no way that they're running against one another. This is all a ploy for most people really to push Hillary into office, who I do not agree with ever, nor do I agree with Donald Trump. So I actually felt like, where do I go? Like who's on the ballot? So I appreciate Taylor, you having them come out today and educating us on how we can find those who are running and try to follow them and try to support them. So thank you for being a man of truth. I didn't even know about Red Message, so I gotta look you up. Those numbers so many times, but I think I heard it sometime in the 80s. So and thank you for being who you are, and I pray that we do get some real help and support in this country.
Thank you. Anything you want to say?
I mean, I'm listening to what she's saying. It's the fact that we're all having the same conversation. And if you're having this conversation in your house, I'm having it in my house, he's having it in his car, and then someone says it out loud, we're all on the same sheet of music. But sometimes you need one person to connect all the dots. And that's how we become collective. The same way we talked about, I'll use police shootings as an example. If you notice, every time the media reports one of these shootings, they try to localize it. Oh, they got an issue in St. Louis. Well, I'm sorry. If the issue is happening in 8 different states at the same time, it's not a local problem. It is a national problem. Okay? And if you're one of those people who's sitting back at home and you're watching corporately owned media by these 6 corporations, you're thinking, this doesn't feel right. This something in the back of my mind is telling me that it just looks too well rehearsed and too put together. And there's no way this guy can be this far off the reservation, and yet he's staying neck and neck with the former first lady of a president that sat for 8 years in the White House, sat as a senator in New York, yet is more embroiled in more legal trouble. Let me say this to your caller. Isn't it interesting that Snowden has to hide in Russia because he simply told on the NSA that they were spying on us through our phones, yet Anonymous wants you to say that they're the ones releasing all of these documents from all of these servers that were hacked, but they didn't hack her server. If you're going to hold him on the grounds of treason, yet you're going to say that she did all of this stuff. She deleted 30,000 emails before she gave it to us. She used off-the-shelf software that makes it unrecoverable, and then says, I have no recollection, but you don't see any grounds to prosecute her? Yet this guy over here stoking every racial tension that this country has pretty much gotten over for the last 20 years. Got people in the streets fighting like it's old school. And y'all don't see something wrong with that? Yet there's pictures of them together being bosom buddies. You know, birds of a feather, as my grandmother used to say. And if you look back, remember this. Hillary, Bill, the Clinton Foundation, the Gates Foundation, all of these organizations have heavy interests where? On the continent of Africa. Heavy investments. Business doesn't break just because I'm stoking your base fears. Remember what they said in the book about propaganda. If you appeal to 4 things in a human being, you can control them. Aggression, security, sex, and awareness. You provoke any one of those, and you can get people to do anything you want. They're appealing to our base instincts, but our minds are telling us at a higher level, this don't sound right. See, we're not as dumb as they make us out to be, but you have to listen to that inner voice sometimes. And don't be afraid to voice your opinion to the person next to you. You might be surprised they're thinking the same thing.
So, big shout out to the Good Life Morning Show. We are running into their time. So, last time, how do we reach you? How do we contact you? And can we, in the state of Massachusetts, because you are not on our ballot, can we write you in?
Only WeCanFixUs.com. I have never been running on the racial ticket. Don't vote for me because I'm black. Don't vote for me because I'm an independent. Don't vote for me because you hate Hillary or you hate Trump. Vote for me because if we don't pull together, then we can't fix us. They're not going to do it. Only WeCanFixUs.com. That's how you go and you actually get on to the platform, join the organization, do donations, everything. Now, for all of the people who are listening who are citizens in the state of Massachusetts, you have 2 choices. One, you can collect 1,000 signatures. And once those 1,000 signatures are collected, you notify us, and then we have to fill out a form that we submit to the Secretary of your Elections here in this state, and they have to add us to the ballot, period. If they say, oh, no, it's too late, or all the signatures weren't together, or yet whatever, then we go to Plan B. Plan B is the write-in campaign.
And what do we write? You
write in my name. For President, John Fitzgerald Johnson. And my name is very easy to remember because you know John F. Kennedy. I told you the day they killed him was the day I was born. For all we know, I came back as a black man. John Fitzgerald Johnson. Remember, President Johnson, Lyndon Johnson succeeded Kennedy. So I'm a child of the 60s. All right, John, and it has to be the exact way that it's declared for the FEC. John Fitzgerald Johnson. You can't write John F. Johnson. You can't write John Johnson, and don't write Gary Johnson. And if you all believe that Gary Johnson just popped up by coincidence, wasn't it amazing that in the middle of me pushing my campaign at his height, he pops up and they start polling just Johnson. He gets a bump in the numbers. I suspend my campaign. His numbers dropped. But now that we're getting close to the end, I got to come back out. And that's why we talk. So when people say, where'd he come from? I didn't come from. I came back.
Big City 101.3 FM, waking up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Face Natural Beauty. We're in the process of getting her a brick and mortar, so you guys can go and purchase the Pum Pum Wash. Shout out to medical marijuana evaluations. If you do not vote yes on question 4 and it becomes illegal for you to just walk around at the age of 21 with your weed, just go and get your medical marijuana card. 820 Pearl Street, Brockton, Massachusetts, 774-517-5195. That is $25 off if you tell them that TaylaAndre sent you. 820 Pearl Street, Brockton, Massachusetts, 774-517-5195. MedWell Health Centers. I love you. I appreciate you, and I hope you have an awesome day today. Mwah.
Hi, how are you?
Rising.
How are you? Are you hot?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
everybody got big
Rising.
names.
Good morning. I just wanted to call and let you know, when it comes to the medical marijuana card, the federal government has just now changed it so that if you are a medical marijuana card holder, you can no longer purchase the card.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Can't purchase marijuana card. What I take, they change the rules. Every time you find a way, they change. They change the rules. move. That's what they do.
Well, let me go ahead and go do some due diligence because that is insane.
Now I can't get a marijuana card.
So if you have a gun, you can't get a marijuana card. And if you have a marijuana card, you can't get a gun.
Wait a minute. So if I'm a
Okay.
so if I have my CCW, I can't
Because federal trumps state law. So what it is
Let me go do my homework, baby, and I'll thank you so much for that. Have a good day.
You too.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Had an excellent time.
for coming all this way.
I'm in Boston. I guess I'll take a little round. We'll be back.
I thank you. I love you. Are we still on? Are we still on here?
I thought it died. Swing with white.
No, we're still on
Still
here.
on?
Why?
Why 2?
1, 2, 4, 3.
I would rather you do 2.
Whichever one you're not using.
I would, okay, you do 1. I like 2. What's my favorite?
So this is the famous Val Beats, big in the streets, Val Beats, and this is hot sauce.
Hey!
What's that? Where you going? What's that? Facebook Live?
YouTube, we're on YouTube. And you've been in his face all rising. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I miss you guys so much. I want to shout out all of my Cape Verdeans. Conte d'Orge. I'm voting for him. And I hope you will too.